Wow. Okay. Chris, tell me more about this. This is amazing. And this would actually go out to help out a lot of people who in the near future would want to be consultants, because during the COVID that happened, that everyone just got laid out. I saw it was like a birth and a reborn of, all these consultants, right? Because this is their profession, it's their expertise, what they've been doing. And a lot of them just started taking the ball and rolling it out from what I'm seeing. Do you see that too as well, just out of curiosity?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's easy to pop up a shingle, but the problem is there's a lot of people trying to do the same thing. So you need to find a niche, right? You need to differentiate. And once you do that, you might have a little bit of what we call FOMO. You might be missing out. But the reality is, once you distinguish yourself, then you can grow from there. And that has actually taken me quite a while to find my niche, because there's so many different ways to solve sales, marketing, customer service, customer success problems. You get pulled in all these different directions, and you think that what you have to do is own your process. You just have to know what you can do really well and what you don't want to get dragged into, because you can get pulled in a lot of different directions. So for me, I'm authoring what I call problem-solving playbooks, right? You might call them a sales playbook, but I embed everything that we've just been talking about, the LEARN and the 5 whys, into that playbook, so that you can just look on your phone or your Chrome extension and walk somebody through that dialogue and not have to memorize it. And by having that rubric, it opens up doors for you that you wouldn't normally be able to open up on your own.
Wow, that is amazing. Okay, and so what I'm hearing from you is it's not a sales playbook. You call it what playbook?
It's a problem-solving playbook.
Problem-solving playbook, which has the learn in it, has the 5 whys, and has the market research that you're talking about that says, hey, it's data, integration. And it seems to me like you're more than, and that's how you differentiate yourself. I can see that now. You're more than someone who's just coming in and, hey, what's going on? You're really...
Well, I'm not going to help you with your sequences.
Yeah.
Unless, because I know that other people like you and Delaney and 100 other guys can do that really well. What most people cannot do well is create a playbook that creates results.
There it is. Yes.
And so I had to find my niche, right? And so I looked at all the different tools. Now, I'm not going to go into the details, but you have to have a certain format, a certain process to serve up the right content at the right time for the right buyer at the right stage. Once you figure that out, boom, you're on a roll.
Nice. And there it is. That's you with, when I was a kid, my cousin had this game on Super Nintendo, one of my favorite I still play today. And you might even be familiar with that, which kind of just reminds me of that right now too, with the awesome hat, by the way. Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
Yeah, the game, he comes out and then he has like a little helicopter on his hat and he just flies up. But he has this cool coat on and he comes in and he's like inspecting with like awesome magnifying glass. And I can imagine you just coming in, just like flying in with the hat, with the white party hat, and just inspecting it around. And it's like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what we need to fix, and implement the learn 5 whys, and data integration, process, workflow. Keep it as smooth as possible, because over time, if it's wrong, it's rusty and things tend to break. And you don't change your oil in the car, it will break.
If you don't have somebody tuning the engine, then you have talent that starts dropping out. And this is everyone's common problem, right? Yeah. So you have to figure out where you can start to create a team. And that was one of the topics of our Shift Happens series, is building a resilient team. Because it's not like I'm just going to come in and change the oil. There's a lot to it. There's the tranny, there's the engine, there's the chassis. And when I start doing these playbooks, there's all kinds of dynamics that take place. The CEOs and the VPs lean in. The top sellers have all their secrets that they don't want to share. I have to figure out what they're doing, right? They got the IP, the intellectual property that everybody else needs, but they don't want to share it. So I have to include them in the conversation somehow.
Oh my God. Okay, let's talk about this. If this is something you'd be open to just give us a brief example or your experience, and it doesn't have to be straight direct, but that is okay. You just brought up a good point right there. You said, hey, look, let me talk to your top performers. What are they doing different that's working? And it finally gets to it's like, oh yeah, Chris, you know, this is how I do it. This is how I do this. I take it this way. And sometimes, and like you mentioned, they don't want to share it because this is where it's white and black, right? Some sales professional really, a magician never reveals his secret to say. And because what happens is if they're breaking through the noise and everyone else finds out about it, start breaking through that noise, it will later become noise. And it's like, oh, well, you just gave away my secret. Like, you could give away little, but not a lot. So how do you, and I would imagine this is the alignment. How would you get them bought in and said, hey, you know what, this is your team, they need your help. And how do you get them aligned? Do they have to really tell their full secret, or is it just a little bit, or is it just like some ticks and ticks?
Yeah, well, you can go back to the learn model, right? So you create a two-way dialogue to listen. The art of consulting is to get people to tell you what they know.
Nice.
So I'll interview them. I'll just say, hey, I need 20 minutes of your time. And we won't even talk about their sales process. We'll just get to know each other. Then I'll set up another call. And then usually it's the third call, we have trust, right? We've removed some roadblocks, right? And what I'll do is I'll propose. I'll say, hey, it seems like you're doing this, you know, and I know it's not right. I know it's a guess, but I'm sort of like, you know, the inspector guy with the helicopter hat, and I've got this flashlight in the fog. I can see a few things.
Yeah.
And at that point, the guy's like, you know what, Chris? No, that's wrong. That's wrong. Let me fix this for you. This is how I do it. And I'm like, oh, thank you. You know, so this is by design, though. This is totally by design.
Oh my God. Yes. Is this separate from that one-on-one? Like, this is just you and that sales professional at the time. So let's say you're working on a project for this company, and you come in like, hey, this is what we need help with, and then you're like, all right, so I need to dive deep into this, and this is something that you have to set up on the side. And this is when you come in, and then the first one's just getting to know each other, like you mentioned, and the second one is like, okay, like just tell me a little bit more, and the third one's more like, oh, Chris Ortolano, yeah, I know that guy, man. Like, hey, you know, hey Chris, I noticed this is what you've been doing with Sales Stack. I also see you run Outbound Edge. I love what you got going on at Crowdcast. And I think this is where you're going. Does that sound right? And you're like, yeah.
You form a hypothesis, based on some market research that you've done, and you allow them to fine tune it, to correct it. You've got to be in the ballpark for one, right?
Yeah.
So, but when you use a learned method with the 5 whys, you can start to develop a hypothesis pretty quickly. And they love it because you're a smart guy. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, this guy knows a few things, huh? And it goes back and forth. So I use what I learned with the first stakeholder to just go knock on the second stakeholder's door. And I assume that I'm going to do that. I say, hey, I'm going to go talk to your colleague down the hall. And so that's what I call the Super Mario method, where I'll go horizontal, and then I'll jump. And I'll take a big jump up to the VP. I'll skip the directors. I'll just go straight to the VP. I'll say, hey, I've learned these things from your frontline. And they're just like, huh, I didn't know that. What the hell? Oh, yeah, did you know that their data, you know, hygiene is really not that good and it's causing a lot of friction? And, oh, by the way, they're using an outbound cadence tool that I would never even ask my enemies to use. And the guy's like, no. I didn't know anything about that because I'm too busy making PowerPoints and going out to lunch.
Okay. Wait. So, oh my God, I love that. The Super Mario, ding, ding, and then jump. Whoop. Okay. Hey, man, is this when you're already bought in?
It's when I'm on the inside.
Is this when you guys already got something going on? Like they brought you on, they said, hey, we're going to pay you. Here we go. And then you start coming, then you start doing that? Or is this something that you do outside before it even happens when it comes to agreements?
You can do it as a prospector too. So I do it with video. I can Super Mario with a really good video when I share some intel that I've learned from the front line or learned from a manager. I'll just jump it up and I'll let them know. I'm like, I'm going to send this to your VP, or would you send it to your VP? And it usually flies. because I'm not asking for the close. I'm asking to have a conversation. It's very different. That's customer development. That's really what we want. We want customers. Sales is the outcome of customer development.
Yes. Oh my God, this is amazing. Okay. And that's a problem with sales development today, because all they want is the opposite. They want the sales before the customer development even comes in. And sometimes it's the customer development that they're looking for doesn't even exist. And therefore it's not even the right match. So, Chris, this reminds me of one of my most favorite episode 2 from, you're familiar with Scott Ingram with the Top 1 FM podcast?
Yeah, I know. He's a good guy.
Yeah. This is like 2018. I just graduated college and I listened to this. At the time, he was an enterprise account executive for Microsoft by the name of Trong Nguyen, Asian Vietnamese guy. Not sure if you're familiar with him too as well.
Maybe.
Well, anyways, this guy grew up poor and stuff too, whatever. But to cut to the chase, he told me where he found success as an enterprise AE is he called it triangulating data, triangulating from the bottom up, and it's doing the same exact thing that you're doing. So he would come on site and chat with all these people and interview them and collect all these issues and problems. And by the time he gets to the C-suite, he goes, "Hey, your process is broken." And they look at him like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And he goes, "Oh, here's what I interviewed. Here's what they said. Here's what I found out." And he says, "Don't believe me. Go find out for yourself." And more times than not, he says 9 out of 10, that person will go ahead and start researching and investigating. And more times than not, after everything gets validated, he earns himself for a second meeting and a third meeting and really becomes that trusted advisor. And that's you.
It should be all of us, but I will agree with you. It's the skill that we as professionals in our field need to hone. It is our craft. And
oh my God,
the sooner you figure that out, the better your life is going to be.
I love this. Chris, so let's talk about middle funnel. You know, on Outbound Edge, it says you specialize in building middle funnel playbooks. So from my understanding, when it comes to marketing, running a demand gen, and SDRs, they're known as top funnel. Is middle funnel your way of saying that is SDR, BDR work too? Is that something in the middle where the AEs are at? Can you elaborate for that with us, please?
Yeah. So the simplest question that you can ask about the middle funnel is to say to yourself, after the demo, what's next?
Oh my God. Okay. Yes. Okay. This is amazing. So please tell us more about that. What, like, from my, and I'm going to be real. When I was an SDR and BDR too, after the demo, it's like, "Hey, thanks. Good job, Jax. Catch you later, man. Refresh Salesforce every 2-3 months and see if any stats changes." And this podcast specifically on sales dev, but this is more for AEs too. So please tell us about that. What's your thoughts when it comes to really after the demo? What now?
Well, it's what next, right?
Yeah. What's next?
It's kind of like going to the wedding, walking down the aisle. You turn, you're like, "We're going to get married, right?" And she's like, "I don't know, maybe." Like, are you fucking kidding? You put all this time and energy into walking down the aisle and you don't even know if it's going to go?
Oh man. Yeah, that's a scary situation, huh? You're asking someone to spend the rest of their life with them for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking me to partner with you, your product or service, and my career reputation is on the line. So only about, don't get me wrong, less than 50% right now of deals are closing. And in this era, COVID, it's even lower. So the pipeline has contracted. We have to focus on quality of conversation. The very easiest way to do that is to look at the number of stakeholders that you have involved. So rather than asking for the close or shopping your demo out, come up with a conversation starter for each stakeholder. Know that you're going to have to go across the department and know that you're going to have to engage them on their terms. So think about what they do, what they care about. Use the demo or the post demo as an opportunity to LEA. Use market intelligence to get them to tell you what they really care about, and then go through a 5 whys with them. You could do this with a deck or not, but my point is you have a golden opportunity to really drive into what their concerns are, like the friend you mentioned, Trong, and then report back. I call that reaching out and reporting back.
Wow. Okay. Let's say this person, like what you just mentioned, did a demo, right? And let's talk about market intelligence. What are a few things this individual can do to get market intelligence and report back? Is this what they said, hey, from what I'm seeing, similar companies like you, this is what they're doing? Is that market intelligence, or what do you mean by market intelligence?
So there's macro factors, right? So we're in the era of COVID, there are huge forces at play that are beyond our control. That's creating some shifts in terms of how we live and work and educate at home.
Nice.
Simple things, right? E-learning, remote workforce. But then there's more subtle things on top of that, right? Which is, what about e-commerce? Are people going to be, buying more stuff? What about payment processing? What about healthcare? What about healthcare data? And so what I would encourage people in any vertical that they're in is to understand their niche in that particular vertical and look at the changes that are impacting that vertical. And then start to ask some questions that are supported by studies from McKinsey or Gartner or Bain or Deloitte or, Forrester, the big 5. Usually they're looking 2-4 years down the road. Simplify it. Take what they're saying and just pull out a few nuggets. Don't just send somebody a Gartner report and say, hey, I thought you might like this.
Hey, Chris, by the way, here's a 120-page Gartner report.
Like, F you.
Right?
Just go,
snippets.
Go suck on it.
Yeah.
My point is, do your homework, dude. Figure out what's inside that Gartner report and then feed it to me. Use the same report over 5 emails.
Yes. I love that. Wow.
Because you know what? Right now, everybody wants to know what the changes are going to be. You could just type in resilience, business resilience, market shift. You're going to get 100 reports. Nobody knows where we're going. Everybody's curious, though. If you start posting that stuff on LinkedIn, I guarantee you'll get hits.
Wow.
So I looked at this pretty closely. I was like, oh, maybe we could start predicting the markets. And it's very difficult. But you can lean into it just enough just to figure out trends. But you've got to know your vertical, your sub-vertical, and your niche within that. Those are the 3 things you need to define right away. And then you can look at an adjacent niche as well. You've got to know what we call the domain knowledge. This is the business lexicon, the terms that they use. You've got to have business acumen. You've got to understand what the factors are in terms of decision-making. And ultimately, you've got to understand the buyer's journey. This is a complex set of ideas. I don't expect SDRs to think this way. I really don't. But if you can have just a modicum of insight, a modicum of understanding, just a little bit, 10% more than your competitor, you will stand out from the crowd. Because most guys roll up and they don't know anything about the industry that they're selling into. They don't know anything about the decision-making process. It's not that hard to do. Just take 20 minutes a day. That's all people are asking. 20 minutes a day to study your industry. 20 minutes a day to study the roles that you sell to. 20 minutes a day to think about the buyer's journey. It'll change your game.
Oh my God. Chris, if that was not the price of an admission right there, I don't know what is.
I told you I was going to bring some zingers.
Yeah, you sure did. And that was straight middle funnel AEs right there for all the AEs and for all the SDR and BDRs who are listening right now, who wants to be AE, they should take note of this. And really that is how they would differentiate yourself. And you're absolutely right. AEs get hired all the time. They jump companies all the time. From the way I see it, the way I see it, really, I see like 3. And it's funny because this is just based on spotting patterns for what I see, and you can tell me if you agree with it too or not. So AEs are closing roles, whatever, right? But there's a lot of different tech and SaaS company that's been around for a very, very, very long time who doesn't have a sales development program, never had one, right? And they have, I like to call them the old school guys. These are like the complex sales B2B, the older individuals. They're in the complex sales AEs, whatever, the big enterprise ones, right? And there's all these tech and SaaS company now that you got, just like the millennial style. They just came in and they went from the SDR route to the AEs route. SDR AE, SDR AE, like, okay. But not all AEs are the same. And from the way I see it, there's it's quite unique too, because the millennial ones, some of them are tech savvy. Like, I'm very tech savvy. I can type, chat at the same time, take notes while doing these type of recordings and stuff like that, multitask, all this stuff. There's some millennials that can't. They're like low in the older side. Like I would say kind of like technology challenge, not really, but tech challenge. And then now we have the upcoming ones now with the Gen Z, right? Supposedly SDR and BDR are seen as an entry level role. Most of them are fresh kids out of college, quote unquote, 22, 24. However, there's a lot of exceptions. It could be people older. I started at 29, and where I'm really seeing is like these SDRs and AEs they never had closing experience before. And it's just lead gen, right? And then, but they're very, very tech savvy. And I see like all these 3 different AEs. And then what you just mentioned, the AEs that are highly successful who really adapt this approach that you just mentioned are the old school ones. Most of them from what I see. I mean, from my experience.
You want to get a job, come with domain knowledge. Okay. If you want to get promoted, develop business acumen. If you want to be a rock star, understand the buyer's journey. That's a 2 to 3 year process, right? That's a 2 to 3 year process. This is your grad school in sales. The thing is, you're not going to get it from reading all the books. You can't just read sales books all the time. You have to lean into the technical details of your own industry. If you're in manufacturing, it's not just building, it's delivering, it's warehousing, it's returning, it's payments. We are selling into ecosystems, huge, massive ecosystems that are changing constantly. And you've got to just get out of the whole sales mentality once in a while and start to look at this map. It's like a 3-dimensional diagram that's growing, but that's where you start to get more meetings.
Nice. So we have, working backwards, buyer's journey, business acumen, and the first one is domain
knowledge.
What do you mean by domain knowledge?
So if I'm in a vertical, let's say I'm in healthcare, right? There's probably 50 sub-verticals in healthcare. Let's say I pick one of them. It's telehealth, okay? I know a few things about telehealth. That in and of itself has other sub-verticals that are specific to the technology, the data, the workflow, the outcomes. But if I wanted, I could become a telehealth expert, right? In probably less than 2 weeks' time. It's all online. It's not that hard to figure out what the major forces, the trends, who the accounts are, who the stakeholders are. I could create a message map for you for telehealth in about 2 days because I put the time into it.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. That would pretty much be your expertise, right? Like you would.
That's how I see the world.
Yes.
That's how, if you're gonna hire me for a playbook, you're gonna get all of those things. You're gonna get market forces, you're gonna get accounts, you're gonna get stakeholders, and you're gonna get message maps. Like we talked about. You're gonna get it in a Kiite or a Guru or an Airtable. We're gonna kind of configure it, and then you're gonna drop it into your Cadence tool, whatever that is.
Nice. I love this. This right off the bat reminded me of my previous company, Silverline. They're a Salesforce Platinum level partner that just works off adjusting your Salesforce Platinum to align with your work, and their vertical, like the domain, business domain, would be healthcare and banking. So, and that's what sets them apart, because I remember my SDR manager was like, yeah, compared to like Deloitte and stuff, because Deloitte does it all scatter all across the board for any business and stuff. And really, it reminds me of that infamous quote, "Jacks of all trades, master of none."
You're going to get pulled in 100 directions. If you just own your lane, call it out. Your lane might get bigger or it might get smaller, but stay in your lane. Know how to use the learn method. Ask the 5 whys. I swear, your buyers will be begging you for the next call because you're so much better to talk to.
Chris, business acumen, is that the learn method and the 5 whys? What is that?
Okay, so I get to reveal a big fat secret, but you have to promise just keep it to the podcast. Don't go out and tell all your, sales development friends. I have a degree in accounting.
Yes. I noticed that.
Okay.
I noticed
What
that.
does it mean? It means I understand financial statements.
Got you.
Right?
Yeah.
It means I understand the finance that's around decision making. There's a cost benefit analysis for almost anything that costs more than, $1,000.
Yeah.
And once you build out that matrix, they call it a value curve. It's all over. You're in. You can get to a decision very quickly. If you don't score high on the value curve, that's okay. You say thank you very much and you go on to the next. You don't chase those bad fit customers. But you have to have business acumen to develop the value curve to know if it's going to work for both parties.
Wow. Oh my God, this is amazing. It's funny because when I was in college, my first focus to major in right off the bat was accounting, because my cousins are accountants, some of them are CPAs, and I really just like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. And later down the road, while taking some class, I was like, I could go ahead and change the major. I ended up doing business admin, but I have a little bit accounting experience too as well. What is it? Liabilities plus assets equals owner's equity or something. That's like the basics.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just really map down the line and gotta make sure the numbers matches, double cross the line under that. But yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so Chris, before we move any further, I know we ran up the hour, but how are we doing on time so far?
Well, fortunately for you, my hourly rate is very affordable.
I love it. I love it. So
I give the first hour free. So you're good. We're even Steven.
Oh man, I love that. Okay. free consulting, right? First
free consulting.
Yeah.
No, why don't we go for another 10 or 15, and then I've got a segue into a supper plan for my wife and I.
Yeah, agreed. I actually just had a few more questions too. I want to dive into that.
Yeah, sure.
So, I love diving deep, right? So I know you're in accounting, so you were an accountant. How'd you get pulled into where you're at today, where to the point where you just, I'm gonna jump the shift from accounting? Or did someone say, hey, Chris, you're a really cool talkative guy, you're pretty consultative, you should try sales? Or did someone just
It was Max's book. It was Max's book, Hacking Sales.
Nice. Tell us about that.
Came out in 2015.
Okay. And
yeah, so as an accountant, what I would see is that there was always a problem with the top line. It was like a roller coaster, down, up, down, up. Many businesses are seasonal. They try different marketing strategies. And Max was saying at the time that we could actually be more predictive, predictable revenue. And so I leaned into it and I was like, And I was part of that early wave of sales developers. I created an online course for Discover.org to train their customers, right? How to be more effective in their sales development roles. So it was Max and the whole movement, that was occurring about 5 years ago. It was like a wave that came through. And at the same time, accounting is a very conservative profession. You can only imagine, you're in a treasury role, you're in a CFO role, you don't have a high tolerance for risk. And I have a higher tolerance. I like to innovate. I like to change. I like to create new solutions to old problems. And so I realized that the accounting skills were good, but the accounting environment, being a tax and audit guy was not my cup of tea. But I still have those skills. I still have those systems analytical skills, which I can take to, a technical engagement. And so I am more technical in nature. And if I have any, insight to share with your audience, I would say lean into the technical aspects of the ecosystems that you're building, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you have to learn a little bit about data governance, or if you learn a little bit about integrations or the complex reporting styles. It will help you in your career. It's just part of the journey that we have to go on. We cannot just be a front for technology. We have to understand how technology drives outcomes and the friction that's involved.
Wow. Okay. I love that. And congratulations, by the way. There's a lot of people out there who comes down to it, and happens all the time. And I'm sure you're aware of it too. It's like, I want to do this. I want to try taking this route, make a career change, but they do it because they're scared, and when you
It's
really
not
make
easy.
that jump, yeah. Like, did you have like a lot of support from that too, from your friends and family? I'm sure some people just like, what are you doing, Chris? You're doing well here. Why are you doing that?
People
And then
still ask me what I'm doing.
you're a middle funnel consultant.
Well, the thing is, if you're not in the tech space, if you don't understand the hierarchies, the roles, the data, then it's very hard to understand, right? And they say, well, you should just be, transactional. Just sell, I don't know, tennis shoes all day. You'll be fine. Consulting is not always the most lucrative. It's like anything. You have to put multiple bets down. You have to see which some customers look great on the outside, and it turns out they're a hot mess on the inside.
Wow. Yes. Yeah.
You can't help them. It's a dysfunctional, disorganized family feud on the inside. You're like, oh, that was bad on me, but I fell in love with the client because they do a beautiful, nice service product, and like everything looked good. So you have to steel yourself for the unfortunate truth that, so I do pilots. I'll do a limited engagement. The reality is the data is a significant problem for 95% of the companies out there. So you have to be very clear about what you can and cannot do. That said, you can have some amazing outcomes. I've been a part of 2 exits, right? So this is where you take a company that's struggling and you identify the X factor. You fix the X factor, and all of a sudden their revenue curve goes like that. And then they sell the company. So the company owners get very wealthy during that phase. When you feel that, when you've done that, it's possible. But it takes like incredible force and will to turn that sinking ship around and get it heading in the right direction, because everyone's like, no, we've always done it this way. And I'm going down with the ship. I'm like, shut up. Okay, just shut up. No, I take it back. It's a lot of coffee dates. That's the reality. It's a lot of trust. But eventually I'm telling them, no, you're too close to the problem. You think you know what you're doing, but I'm an outsider. I talk to people like you every day. And then finally they say, thank you. Thank you for understanding. We call it founder syndrome.
Wow.
Working with founders is very difficult. So you need to figure out when they're ready to mature and the founder lets go. That's a good opportunity for me.
Wow. Wow. I love that. And okay, so just to confirm what I'm hearing, this is typically when you're working with founders of a company. They have a belief that said, this is my vision. I've been doing this for years, and we would never take that specific route. And then you come in and, a lot of people, sometimes they would even like, I wouldn't say hate, but they're like, I don't need no outside person, outside work. But sometimes just getting help from someone from the outside really helped them see things that they weren't able to see on the inside.
A lot of people will take 1 or 2 calls. I give away 2 hours, and they'll say, oh, those are good ideas. That sounds good. And it may not even be the money. They're just not in a position to change the way they've been doing things.
Got it.
Okay, so until you're in a
Okay, focus.
position where you're forced to change, you're probably not going to want to, because change is really hard to do. But the outcomes are not going to be great unless you can embrace change. They call it crossing the chasm. There's dozens of books written about it. The great leaders are always looking for the difficult decisions, the hard changes to make. That's what our society is going through today, making the hard changes. We can't be stuck in an outdated mentality unless you just want to keep, rolling cars off the assembly line. That's not how we're going to grow as a society, as a business, and as a person.
Oh my God. I love that. And it's funny because this is with personal development too. It's you got to be open to change, right? A lot of people don't because it's uncomfortable. And really, to be successful and to grow, you got to get uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, doing things you don't like. Like for instance, I start being a runner too, and I freaking hate running, but I do it anyways because I have to. And just getting the stuff from it afterwards is very like rewarding, and knowing that you accomplished something. But it's that person out there that goes out there and says, you know what, screw this, I'm gonna do it because I have to.
You know when I'm most successful, Jackson, is when I feel miserable. I'm not kidding you. But afterwards, I feel fantastic.
Wow. Okay.
The Japanese have a phrase for it. It's called misogi.
Misogi. I'm gonna have to jot that down.
MISOGI.
So the most time that you're saying the most time that you find yourself feeling successful is after feeling miserable?
I'm successful when I am miserable.
Okay.
When I'm forcing myself to cross the chasm, to walk through the fire of uncertainty, doubt, fear, and unknowingness. But I have to push. I have to keep going. Just like when you're running, you said, I don't know, you ran 10 miles and it killed you, and then you ran 14 and you made it.
Yes.
You see, you had to get killed in the 10 mile in order to get to the 14.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. That, it's funny. I love that. I really just was trying to figure it out right now. What did she meant by that? Because I know about, you have to be uncomfortable to grow, learn, grow, but didn't really catch what you're saying when you find success in being miserable. And you just definitely clear it out. So
it's miserable on the inside. It's my head. It's trying to like solve a very complicated problem. Then I have it in my back pocket. I'm like, yes, it's a 10-step sequence. It's the learn, it's the 5 whys. Like I have that just ready to go, but I had to put in the time to figure all that stuff out.
Yes. Love it. Okay. So Chris, I know I took a lot more than your time than I'm supposed to. So I just have one more question for you before we get going here. Right when the COVID happened, man, it's fucked up. Everyone was sad. Everyone was scared. And you were the first person that I really believe that came out leading with resilience. Talk to us what that is.
Yeah, so resilience is really the capacity to recover from a shock to the system. And it could be a number of things. It could be having extra reserves on hand. It could be having the strength, if you will, just the sheer muscle mass. Or it could be the organizational design, the way we communicate and adapt. And I think a lot of companies didn't have the first two. They didn't have a lot of cash in the bank. They didn't have the leadership skills. And so they had to look at ways to create a more flexible work environment. The most obvious is the work from home. And that was the first, chasm that we've crossed successfully. But now the question is, what are we selling? Do we need to change our product? Do we need to listen to our customers? Do we need to find a different way to serve our existing customers? And I think that's what resilience is. It's about asking hard questions, but in a flat setting, not just having the C-levels tell you what the market's doing. Everybody has an opportunity. And so there's a learning loop, right? A feedback loop that needs to be developed that allows everyone to contribute. In a factory setting, we talked about this, you have a Kaizen board. Yeah. And anonymously, the workers write, the line's too slow, the line's too fast. And the managers, I've seen them review the board every day, and they write their response. Okay, that's what we need to build resilient companies, is we need transparency around what's working and what's not. Once we figure out how to do that, the productivity will accelerate.
Yes. Kaizen, continuous improvements. I talk about it all the time. I remember when I just graduated in 2018, right before I graduated, I took this sales class, and that's when I first was exposed to Kaizen. Like, hey, factories, Japanese people would walk these Kanban, they call it Kanban, they write on the Kanbans, they pass it to this guy passes to that guy, and then literally it leads up to the board. And It's like just reporting issues. And it's just a constant flow of continuous improvement that it's just like sales and practicing personal development.
The thing is, sales leaders don't think that way because they're under a tremendous amount of pressure. And so we need to introduce these principles from the ground up, right?
Yep.
We need to crawl, walk, run. We need to lead for the leaders because all they're doing is looking at spreadsheets all day, trying to figure out what their forecast is and what the probability of close is and if they should hire more people. Like, they're not in continuous improvement mode. We are. We're on the front lines. But the thing is, you can't roll up on somebody and laundry list them with, 15 things that are broken. It's too much. So you need to create a feedback loop where slowly, you have a point of contact, one person, he or she's the team lead. They normalize the data and you say, hey, boss, what if we improve this one thing? Oh, what if we improve this next thing? Oh, slowly we introduce change. I personally think, Jackson, with the complexity of tech sales right now, we need a much more team-based incentive program so that people could learn and share information from each other. The way we have it right now is you have individuals who are competing with each other. Now, that's a classic model. Before we had, cloud services, we couldn't share the intel. Now, if you want to share a market intelligence or an account intelligence playbook that's embedded with queries that are specific to verticals, I can build that for you. And everybody can share ideas about what's going on in the market. It's a much more productive model. But we need leaders like you to set the pace for that model because the old guard, regardless of age, didn't grow up doing that. And so they don't think that we need it. That's continuous improvement.
Oh my God. That's it right there. Chris Ortolano.
That's it.
Chris Ortolano coming in.
I told you I was going to bring some fire, bro.
Coming hot. Oh my God. I love that. Chris, so without further ado, if there's anyone right here listening on the pod right here, they want to reach out to you and say thank you, what's the best way to do so? And if we miss anything, please just fill us in. But I know we took up more of your time than an hour, but yeah, take it away, please.
Yeah, so I'm easy to find online. Sales Nerdo at Twitter. My last name is Ortolano, Chris Ortolano on LinkedIn, and then also Sales Stack, 2 S's in the middle, .io is the community. But more importantly, rather than connecting with me, I want the audience to pay it forward and connect with somebody else. I want you to take these ideas, internalize them, and go out and connect with a colleague, a coworker, somebody in your community that you haven't talked to before, and reach out to them. That's the most important thing that we can do right now, is reach out to others. And if you have questions about how to do that, learning the LEARN method, the 5 whys, learning about domain knowledge, then I'd absolutely be delighted to help you.
Amazing. And there it is, guys. That wraps it up for this episode of the One Up Sales Development Podcast. Mr. Chris Ortolano, thank you again so much for hopping on.
Absolute pleasure, Jackson. Thank you for being a community leader.
And